Welcome, everyone. Dr. Mercola helping you take control of your health. And today we're going to be with Charlie Brown. And you may remember him from the many times we've previously interviewed him. And he's here today for Mercury Awareness Week. We have been supporting him for over a decade, and he has done magnificent, unbelievable efforts with this support. He is on the verge of eliminating mercury from dentistry not only in the United States, but the entire world. He was a former attorney general, I think, of West Virginia, I believe, and has used that expertise and his commitment, his passion and dedication to this cause to make unbelievable strides. And we are so close to actually eliminating it in our lifetime. Can you imagine the children of the world not having to contend with a potent neurotoxin embedded in their teeth and have to get it removed? Now, I personally have struggled with this and had some complications from mercury, and my parents didn't know any better, and that was the state of the art. When Charlie first started, there were virtually no mercury-free dentists, and thanks to his efforts, now 50%, largely thanks to his efforts, certainly about other variables, but 50% or more of the dentists are now mercury-free. So he pioneered that, and now he's nearing the finish line of making sure that there's a worldwide global ban on mercury in dentistry. So he's here today to give us an update on his current progress and also to seek funding for his continued support to take this goal to the end. And we're going to match his donations dollar for dollar up to $150,000. So I hope you can participate and join me in supporting what I believe is a very noble cause, not only for ourselves, but for future generations.
Hi, I'm Charlie Brown of Consumers for Dental Choice, and welcome to Mercury-free Dentistry Week. We're honored that Dr. Joseph Mercola again steps up to sponsor this week-long campaign focused on education, focused on advocacy, and focused on raising the funds necessary to move this cause forward and end the use of mercury in the mouth. We've come so far on dental amalgam, a mercury product that, horrific as it sounds, was the mainstay of dentistry just a couple decades ago. Only a short time ago, dentistry was putting mercury in just about everybody's mouth. Only 3% of the dentists were mercury-free. The American Dental Association owned patents on amalgam. The Food and Drug Administration refused to do its duty to regulate amalgam, and the state dental boards were horrible to mercury-free dentists, actually shutting them down if they spoke out against mercury. So we, starting basically in California and then here in Washington, D.C., our office, we built a coalition of wise dentists, of aware consumers, of concerned environmentalists. And we educated government officials too. And we have obviously ended amalgam use for many, many people. Many millions of people don't get amalgam, but we have a long way to go. We want to finish. We want to make sure no child of any economic level, that no soldier or sailor, that no one gets mercury in the mouth. So thank you, Dr. Mercola, for putting your money where your mouth is, for graciously offering to match every individual dollar that we raise between now and August 24.
What is dental amalgam?
Dental amalgam is 50% mercury, and it's been called silver fillings, but that's really wrong. No one should call it silver fillings. They are mercury fillings. They release mercury. They release mercury into our brains, into our kidneys. We pass the mercury through our bodies, in our waste, and then it goes into the environment. We breathe it out into the environment. And when our life ends, the cremation or burial, what's ever left is going into the environment. It's an environmental hazard. It's the largest use of mercury in the environment. It is definitely a health risk. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, Health Canada, all the regulators are worried about the mercury in the health. And then finally, for workers, for dental workers, it's a disaster. Mercury is the most vaporous of the heavy metals, which means that they're breathing this stuff 8, 10, 12 hours a day. And it's harmful to anyone, but particularly for women of childbearing age who would be pregnant or might choose to become pregnant or become pregnant in their, in the upcoming years.
Could you tell us about Consumers for Dental Choice and why it's a good choice for charitable gifts?
Consumers for Dental Choice is a small nonprofit group. We're qualified by the IRS for charitable donations. We've been around for 20 some years because we started with a single mission. We've stayed with that mission. Where, as Dr. Mercola points out frequently, we are efficient. We are effective. We run a low-cost operation, which allows us to fund and support other nonprofit groups who complement our mission in the United States, in Canada, in Latin America, in Africa, in Europe, in Asia, in island states, all over the world. We have partners who we help, just dedicated and capable women and men who run environmental groups and who agree to work some of their time on mercury-free dentistry. So we went from a national nonprofit advocacy group, Consumers for Dental Choice, to founding of what you'll sometimes hear our worldwide name, which is World Alliance for Mercury-Free Dentistry, which I chair and we run from this headquarters.
How has Mercola contributed to Mercury-free Dentistry Week?
We're so grateful to Dr. Mercola. He stepped up 12 years ago and said, I'm going to match your donations. And that brings out all kinds of donors, just donors that don't even know me, but trust Dr. Mercola. Then those who do know me and know our cause and work for Mercury-free dentistry are more emboldened to give. That is a matching funds. It's a whole week of matching funds through August 24, to remember the duplicate, August 24, 2024. You can donate. If you're sending a check, you can send it the next week. And I did also, I'm pointing out that if people want to contact our office, need extra time, there's no problem with that at all. Because we do know somebody might see this tape a little late or something, and because you do save them, and that's good. Dr. Mercola has been a voice that empowers consumers, empowers health professionals, educates us, tells us where to go, where to go to find information. Make sure we don't over rely on medical professionals and drug companies who tend to want to emphasize surgery, drugs. It's us. Like we solve your problems. He wants us to say we solve our problems, and we often need medical and professional dental advice and help. But we are the ones in charge, and therefore we make the decisions. And we certainly don't want drug companies or medical people too quick with the surgical knife or anything else to run our lives and change our lives for the worse. He obviously emphasizes nutrition. He emphasizes exercise. He emphasizes things that don't gain a dollar of him. He says he likes vitamin D, but he says sunshine's much better. And so far the drug companies have no control over that one, or sunshine. So we really are, he's such an important voice for empowerment and for public health and personal health. But for our cause, by singling us out and asking people to donate, by matching every dollar of up to $150,000, we have the opportunity, and each year it's worked well for us, to raise the funds to do this campaign, to win in the United States, win in Canada, which we can do, and win all over the world, which we are already doing, as we're going to talk about today.
What are the dangers and environmental effects of mercury fillings?
Let's talk about environment, because those that don't have a mercury filling or have had them removed, perhaps, say, well, you're not in the clear, I hate to say, because that mercury is getting into the fish that people are eating, the children are eating, causing permanent brain damage, by the way, to some, according to EPA. So the mercury is a toxin that goes in the environment and harms us all, in the vegetables, in the fish, in the air from crematories. That's why you can't build a crematory near a school, but they do anyway. Because it is the amalgam fillings. It's a horrible menace. American Dental Association has just been a horribly regressive force in America by being the chief advocate for mercury fillings, with their patents, with their sham advocacy of silver fillings, all because they did not want to modernize, and they don't want to modernize their profession, which is a pretty strong indictment of a group that you'd think would be a health professional group. It's really a health trade group. It's a trade group, and they act accordingly. But we this environmental menace is ending but too slowly. But it's ending because we have a worldwide treaty, and we've gone at amalgam as an environmental issue. But equally, it's a work, and equally more directly to dental workers and dentists, it's a terrible workplace risk. Dentists have the highest suicide rate in the United States for good reason. They're so exposed to mercury. It affects the dental workers, the women dentists, women dental workers in their pregnancy opportunities, less likely to happen, more problem pregnancies. Um, and other health problems from being exposed to mercury for 12 hours. And finally, for the consumer, not finally, but also importantly, the FDA says children shouldn't get amalgam with the health risk. Women who are pregnant, breastfeeding, or planning a pregnancy shouldn't. People with kidney disease shouldn't get amalgam. People with neurological conditions, metal hypersensitivity. That's a third or more of the population. Already the FDA says shouldn't get it. That really is enough, because dentists can't diagnose kidney disease, for example. They can't diagnose neurological disease. It just shouldn't be done. The FDA is making that increasingly clear. It is a health problem. Now you say, well, can we do something else? And the answer is sure. The alternatives are better. Amalgam's tooth unfriendly. It's just a stopgap thing where you remove good tooth matter, damaging the tooth, making more money for the dentist later. That's a big reason the ADA likes amalgam, but to make more money later from the tooth. But also, it's simply not tooth friendly. That the alternatives are tooth friendly, and they're cavity preventing, which amalgam is. And there's so many reasons not to use amalgam, and the only reason it's not really are the lazy, incompetent dentists who want to keep going, and their trade group, the ADA, that keeps saying, "Go ahead and you don't have to change," but they're changing. If they don't see the light, they're feeling the heat.
Can you give us an update on global progress in the fight against mercury in dentistry?
The largest assemblage of nations in the world, the European Union, 27 nations, bans amalgam effective January 1, 2025. Very soon from now, amalgam's gone from this whole continental Europe. The few countries that aren't in the EU, in the Central and Western Europe, ended it already, like Norway, Switzerland, Moldova. But these 27 are done. And they've gone further. They banned exports. Why is that important? Because unfortunately, sometimes products get banned in rich countries like lead paint. So it just shipped to the poor countries. They can't do that. They can't export amalgam. So no use, no exports. The importing and the manufacturing also have phase out dates. So we're going to be done with amalgam in Europe very, very soon. And that's a huge factor. But we've won other places across Asia, Europe, Latin America. St. Kitts and Nevis in this hemisphere bans amalgam. So does Nepal. So do the Philippines. India and Bangladesh ban it for soldiers and sailors. Vietnam, Mauritius, Tunisia, Tanzania ban it for children, pregnant women. Gabon bans it. It's just it's all kinds of activities going on around the world. Now let's bring it all together, because there is a place we're bringing it all together, and that's the Minamata Convention on Mercury, the treaty that we won, but we won to get in the door, what's called phase down. Well, the treaty, as we've kept the pressure on, brought an amazing team of women and men on our team of civil society, environmental leaders from around the globe to these meetings. We've shifted the focus from phase down to phase out, gone. And that is now the focus of the Minamata Convention. The Children's Amendment says it's over for children. We're not getting that fully enforced, but it's supposed to be over for children, pregnant, breastfeeding women. We now require each country to file a report if they haven't phased out amalgam yet. And then finally, coming next year, 2025, will be the vote on phasing out amalgam at the treaty. The fall of 2025 for the donors, and we keep encouraging. I know I do. I'm a nonprofit group. We run solely off public donations and support, but we need to get ready, because coming then, it's already in the treaty, it's already on the agenda, it's already stated as a goal of the treaty to phase out amalgam on a date certain, 2030, little ways in the future, but the phase out date is what matters, having a date. And that decision is coming when the nations reconvene in the fall of 2025, a little over a year from now. So we are gearing much of our work to prepare for a worldwide, building the worldwide consensus that we're going to need to have by that time.
Tell us about the U.S. campaign.
First, let's point out we've driven out the U.S. Dental products makers, the two major makers of dental products, Dentsply and Invista, and I give them credit. I didn't give them discredit for making it. Now I give them credit for stopping. They both stopped making amalgam. This is the discredit of the pro-Mercury American Dental Association. You always would think that health profession says to manufacturers, stop making something. But here the manufacturers stop making it, and the leaders of the American Dental Association say they keep using it, which is really outrageous. So we now have to turn up the heat on the importers, like Southern Dental Industries in Australia, who's adding to their imports when the U.S. companies left. So we are really trying to stop the import of mercury fillings after persuading the two major manufacturers. There's some rogue companies around in the U.S., one in Nevada we know of, but the two main companies are out of the amalgam business. So that's huge. Secondly, government programs are not keeping up with the private sector. The private sector is changing dramatically, has changed. So many people watching this may say, as people say to me, well, they don't use that anymore. And I say, well, I'm so glad they don't use it on you, and they don't use it on millions of us. They don't use it on me. But we are not yet reached the point where the government, the steadfast, no move, inert bureaucracies, Indian Health Service, the military, the Defense Department, the prisons, the Medicaid, they say, why should we change? And the reason they aren't changing is consumer choice doesn't important. The corporal or the seaman can't say to the captain or the lieutenant who's doing the fillings, this is what I demand, because they can't demand anything from a officer. The prisoner has no rights. The Native American in the United States really doesn't have the rights the way the Indian Health Service operates. Medicaid is so hard to find a dentist that they end up in these Medicaid mills. So we really have to change public dentistry, and it's to the detriment of it's to the kind of disgrace of the government that they have these programs with no consumer choice and they won't change. But we've got the heat moving. We've got a program. We've got the Red River Declaration challenging the Indian Health Service to change. We have the California campaign where we're going after Medi-Cal through a tremendous and new ally, the Alameda County Consumer Affairs Commission, which is a county commission in Oakland, the Consumer Advocacy Commission there. We're delighted to get to work with them. So we're building grassroots up in California to challenge the ongoing use of that in our nation's #1 state, and meaning the largest Medicaid program in the country, which, as Californians know, is called Medi-Cal. We also are working with the U.S. government here. We're working with the agencies of the U.S. government. We have some very strong allies who have really stepped up with us to help put this initiative together.
Tell us about the Canadian campaign.
We have a nonprofit group partner up there, Friends of the Earth Canada. She and I have met, and our team from around the world had a meeting with the Devices Regulation Department of Canada to say you need to do a lot more. We are really pushing Health Canada to enforce its rules on the First Nations people, because they simply have standards that they're not following. And this is not uncommon for government. But in Canada, we are really showing them, look, you have standards and you're ignoring your own standards when you do your health care for the First Nations, which we call Native Americans in the United States. And so we are trying to really turn up the heat on Canada and show the inconsistency as exists in the United States too, and across the Americas, in the trend to mercury-free dentistry for the general population, and the lack of this trend by the agencies that administer Indian healthcare, whether it's in Brazil, Mexico, the United States, or Canada.
How important is the partnership with mercury-free dentists in your campaign? What has been the impact?
The mercury-free dentists have been the sine qua non to success here. We couldn't do it for three really important reasons. One of them is they are the servers of mercury-free dentistry. You know, we went out, fought for them, so the dental boards quit harassing and even worse, going after their licenses. We stopped all that, and so the dentists can advertise, advocate. So they're the ones in the communities providing mercury-free dentistry instead of the one down the street who's still putting mercury in the mouths of children. So we need them. Number two is they are strong advocates at hearings, at other events that we do. When we went to the Food and Drug Administration, we had we had deans, we've had dentists, we've had professors, practicing dentists that have all over the country that in these hearings have stepped up or written documents. We've had sign-on letters. So they are servers of mercury-free dentistry to the millions of Americans. They are thousands, and now it's millions because there's so many of them. They are the advocates and they are donors. And we're so grateful to the dentists who step up each month off their credit card or each yearly during the Mercola matching campaign and donate. They are a sizable amount of and I'm very open with this. People say, well, what do you feel about dentists? I say, well, dentists are major donors, but there are dentists that just are following the company line with their brains closed and eyes closed and keep doing mercury in the mouth. But the thinking dentists, the wise dentists, the compassionate dentists, the ones we work with, donate to us and are serving for everyone, not just, okay, well, I don't pay attention to this child, this low income child. They aren't that way. It's no mercury for anybody. So I salute the mercury-free dentists, and I'm grateful that so many of them have just throughout their careers donate to us every month or every year.
What are your ambitious goals and exciting expectations for 2025 in the fight against mercury?
Well, let's talk the U.S. first, because we've got to get amalgam out of government programs. We've got to cut off these imports. We've got to shift the final stage of the American campaign, which is basically mercury fillings for the poor and the powerless. Soldiers in their situation in the chair, they don't choose. I get to choose. Many of the viewers here get to choose and say, not for me. But the insurance companies are still a problem. And the government agencies are still a problem. And that is where our challenge is going. We have the grassroots California Up campaign, we have the Indian Health campaign, we have the campaign working with the federal agencies. And we want to do more. And we also are working with our Asian allies and Australian allies against this importer into the U.S., Southern Dental. So we have an ambitious campaign in America and U.S. and including the Canada campaign. Worldwide, our ambition is to win at the Minamata Convention on mercury. And again, to say to prospective donors and to the longtime donors that have gotten us to this point, and we really are grateful to you folks watching who have written us checks or done your credit cards before, because you really have played, it means something. We're efficient, we're effective, but we can't run without funding, of course. And the Minamata Convention on mercury they wrote it into the treaty. We drafted it, in fact, that said that that end of amalgam is in 2030, phased out. Now, but it's in brackets, meaning it is not legally binding. It is in the treaty. It is what we call aspirational, a goal. That will be on the table next year. Now, let me tell you, with a light bulb, there were mercury light bulbs. They had they had the fourth conference of the parties, they had the same thing written in. At the fifth conference, they won. So at the fifth conference, we got ours written in, and that battle will continue. We've got tremendous help from the African region, unanimous. We've got tremendous help from the European Union. Unanimous of those 27. The 54 countries in Africa, 27. It's not a vote like we'd like it to be, because we have the majority of countries across the world. There are countries speaking for us at the last thing. It is a consensus. It's the way treaties are done. There is a vote only if there is somebody that is an outlier time after time, and they just say, we just can't have this anymore. But usually it's a consensus. So we're working with the harder countries who have been more reluctant to change. And those changes are coming, and we're seeing them come across the globe. And we just have these wonderful leaders. I'll tell you one, the chief dental officer of Tanzania contacted me many years ago and said, I want to end amalgam. No one had done that before. No chief dental office of a government, nowhere in the globe. We thought it was a fake letter. Nobody really, it was not. It was Safari Kabul is his name, and Safari dentist, chief dental office of Tanzania, and I worked together. Finally, I went over there. I've been there now several times. They've ended amalgam for children, pregnant women now. There's an exit date at the end of the 2020s. No more amount. They have programs. An incredible program. It's a low income country, but the willpower was there by the leaders. And those are the kind of things that we're just so excited to work with, that we find. Tunisia, we have a wonderful chief dental officer. I've talked to dental association presidents who want to end amalgam in Indonesia, Vietnam, Bangladesh, Nigeria, Zambia, who say, we don't want amalgam. It's the dental officers, the chief dental officers in the rich countries, the ADA, the British dental, Canadian dental, they're lobby. I mean, the lobbyists are making money. They just can't change their minds. But you go beneath the surface and you go to these lower income countries. We work, it's the dentists and us, we all work together to say, let's end amalgam. So highlight next year is going to be winning at the Minamata Convention and changing U.S. policies, U.S. and state government policies.
Why is the EU's upcoming ban on amalgam use and exports in 2025 important?
What the European Union has done is the prototype for the world. They've set a date. They said, we're done with amalgam. They've of course benefited the hundreds more people live in the European Union than live in the United States and Canada combined. It's a huge populace. It's 27 countries. So they've stepped up to benefit their own citizens, but they've stepped up also by saying, we're not going to export. No company can export. You can't offload it. You're done. Don't think there's going to be something left over. You better stop making it this minute, because you're not going to sell it anywhere, and you're not going to sell it here either. And so the ban, though, means the EU will step, as they've done over and over, step on the world stage at these Minamata conventions and say, everybody can end amalgam. We did it. You can do it. So they are a advocate on the entire world stage, in addition to helping their own people and being a prototype that we can look to. So we are grateful. I want to say this was a campaign that went back to 2011. And when I first went to Brussels with some wonderful European people, particularly our ally from France, our longest term ally, Non au Mercure Dentaire, everybody was against us except Sweden and Denmark. Every other country didn't want it. They were terrible. They were reading scripts handed them by the European Council of Dentists. It just was same situation we faced here. But we'd already faced down and beaten the state dental boards here. We'd already sued and beaten the FDA in court. So I wasn't fazed. I just says this is a huge thing. But we built the coalition, and step by step. But that's again why supporters, advocates that you are, particularly all across America, who have stepped up to help us. You helped us win in Europe, because we needed to have this sustained 13-year campaign. But it affects things here. When Europe banned amalgam for children, that's when the FDA sat down with us and said, well, we better do something too. They weren't doing anything. All at once, the European Union made them look bad. So they stepped up to give the recommendations against amalgam. We think the European campaign, the ban in Europe, will have the same cathartic effect on this side of the Atlantic. So we're very excited. And I want, again, donors to say, why would you help somewhere else? Because it's coming right back here. The good stuff's coming right back here, because the U.S. has been a little slower than some of the rest of the world. And we want them to catch up.
Why has the FDA advised against amalgam use for kids and people with certain health conditions since 2020?
The FDA recognized the science was there. They realized that it was time to act, to catch up with Europe, catch up with the world. We played a pretty huge role in this, frankly. We had a meeting with the chief person in the Center for Devices, Dr. Jeff Shuren. He's a physician and a lawyer, and he runs the Center for Devices of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. He graciously assembled probably 10 members of his staff. We brought in about a dozen people, and we had another 6 or 8 on the phone. That was 2018. There really wasn't Zoom then, but they were on you had a phone in the middle of the room, and they were all in conference. We had a big array, local public officials, dentists, consumer advocates, environmentalists, health advocates, nurses, just incredible group of people that stepped up to the FDA and said, you need to move. And Shuren, I found out later, told his staff after the meeting, we got to do something. So that was 2018. 2019, FDA held a hearing. We brought, again, a great team in. In addition, we read letters. We brought in video and other testimony. But we had about 7 or 8 of us there at the meeting to testify in person. And in 2020 came the recommendations, and we thought it would dramatically change dentistry. It certainly affected the manufacturers because they read the writing and they got out once FDA issued the recommendations. You would have thought dentists would have got it, insurance would have changed. They didn't. So we keep using this recommendation as the basis to say, why are you still doing this on children? You can't, FDA recommends against it. Well, they don't ban it. Well, they risk getting sued. They risk community approbation. They risk being viewed as dentists who are practicing dentistry from a previous century instead of 21st century. All these negatives, but the ADA just digs in with their patents and with their silver filling deceptions and all that. The American Dental Association remains a pro-Mercury organization after all these years. You'd think they'd wake up. They haven't woke up yet. But again, I think they may never see the light. They will feel the heat. The FDA saw the light. I give them credit, and they continue to engage with us, and they continue to engage with other government agencies as well. So we changed that, and this was a hard row to hoe because years ago when FDA wouldn't do anything, I sued them and beat them in federal court. The FDA was told they have to classify. That was in a different decade. But then they didn't move after that again for a number of years. We had to win in Europe. It was pretty clear before we could win here. And then we issued, and Dr. Mercola filmed all this and had some of his team there. We've issued the Chicago Declaration, which was a statement of 50 groups saying amalgam use must end. And that declaration from Chicago has certainly had a real impact and had an impact on FDA, and we continue to cite it today.
What was the impact of the Children's Amendment at the 2022 Minamata Convention?
The impact of the Children's Amendment was electrifying. They're in Indonesia at the fourth conference of the parties. And we won the victory saying amalgam should not be used. It wasn't mandated, but it's mandated each country act to either ban or recommend against use. It took effect in 2023. We view it as a ban document for children, pregnant women, breastfeeding women, and we are pushing the governments to follow it. Tunisians followed it, for example. Zambia, I just met very recently with the government, with the team in Zambia, and they are pushing, saying this is our prototype to work from. So the Children's Amendment is a fantastic document, but as with so many laws, this is international law, it has to be implemented. And those things aren't automatic. I think we learn that as we get more aware of government operations. To pass a law is a wonderful thing, but it must be implemented. And so we are working hard to implement it. It's been uneven, but it definitely is having an impact on every continent on Earth, and it is a document to work from. Remember, Europe started with a ban on children before they did it all. We've now started with a ban on children, so when we go back to the Minamata Convention in 2025, we can say, you've done the children's ban, now is time to step up, and let's finish the job for the rest of us.
How can dental patients help reduce amalgam use?
I urge all dental consumers to go only to a mercury-free dentist. Those dentists, those women and men, are the ones doing the right kind of dentistry. Now, there's some dentists who won't use it on you, but they'll use this term, the welfare child or the low-income person. And that's not the kind of dentist to go to, who says, well, I'll just make money any way I want, but I'll make sure for you it's mercury-free. Don't go to those dentists. Convince them. Say, would you stop using amalgam on everybody? But if they play games with you, I urge you to leave. There's mercury-free dentists in your community. I know there are. Now there are. It was hard to find at one point. They're not hard to find. And we have a website listing of mercury-free dentists around the country, but it's more than that. But that's one place you can look. And we urge you to go to toxicteeth.org and look up the dentists that we have on our list. I would just encourage everybody to be a one-person campaign for mercury-free dentistry with your dollars for you and your family, and say, we will only go to mercury-free dentists. So that is a step you can take as a consumer to go to mercury-free dentists. And the mercury-free dentists will appreciate it, of course. We will appreciate it, but so will the environment. And again, the two ways to change things are to see the light and feel the heat. And if this dentist starts feeling I'm losing patients because I still use mercury over here a little once in a while on these patients, they may stop, because many dentists, thousands over the past decade, have gone mercury free. It's shifted. Dentistry is in radical shift mode. It's very exciting. We want to go all the way, get everybody mercury free. And any of us can play a role by that kind of personalized advocacy and education.
How can viewers help move America and the world to mercury-free dentistry?
We welcome advocates, donors, volunteers. Please go to our website if you don't get our emails, toxicteeth.org. You can sign up there and receive our stuff, if you will, because we give tips. When we need help, we ask our advocates, our readers, to write a state government, to write policymakers, federal or state or provincial in Canada. So, but also, of course, please consider us. Please stay with us as a donor if you are one, or join us as a donor. As Dr. Mercola has made clear, we are very efficient with our financial situation. We're a nonprofit group. We have a bare bones headquarters in Washington, D.C., because we want to fund the right team of advocates in America and the right team of advocates all through the Americas and all through the world. We've done that. Our track record speaks for itself. Dentistry has shifted. It's banned in Europe. It's banned in Philippines and Gabon and Moldova and St. Kitts and Nevis and New Caledonia and Nepal. Banned for children, many other places like Vietnam, Mauritius, Tunisia. So we really want to end amalgam, and we can do it right here in this country at the federal level, the state level, in Canada and around the world. But we really do need funding from the donors of the United States and Canada, who really have made us a success. We would not be a success without the donations. It's impossible to run a nonprofit group without a certain level of funding. That's why we're grateful to Dr. Mercola matching funds, but it's beyond him. It's the hundreds of women and men and small companies too, and health professionals and dentists and dental people that work in dental professionals who have stepped up year after year and made this a really important gift. We are a 501c3. That is, we are a charity allowed under IRS law for the tax deduction and so on. But we do want to do things well. And if you, you can go to our website. You can write me directly, charlie@toxicteeth.org. I answer emails. It comes straight to me, charlie@toxicteeth.org. And I welcome hearing from you. I welcome answering your questions, and I welcome listening to your ideas. Some of our best successes have come from people that have written and said, why don't you try this? And we look at it and sometimes try it, and it sometimes works.